education and career development, those kind of topics. So it's really fitting for Dr. Kennelly to sort of open up this forum with the topics on career choices in biomedical sciences. Welcome.
I can try. Okay, my fun fact is I play with trains. Little ones, don't worry. You're saying one of the few things that I did when I was 10 years old, I still find fun as an adult. So, as Jake said, I've been here a while, 28 years. I'm obviously the graybeard in the group here. And when Ed called me up, in past years I've given talks on careers, and in past years I've given talks on success strategies for graduate school, and he asked me to talk about both of them. So here goes.
Sometimes that's how.
There we go, I gotta find the right button. So you guys have chosen a really, really cool area for your profession, because science is dynamic, it's challenging, it's fun, it's very personally rewarding. You can see what you've done. I've figured out this, I've discovered that, I've published this, I've made that, I've contributed to this. When you've heard the people talking about their rotations, right? They're not saying, yeah, I'm flipping burgers, you know, I serve more customers, you know, than anybody else on my shift at McDonald's. They were talking about some really impressive things. And it's a profession that changes all the time, which is one of the things that makes it really cool. And so one of the things you have to realize is that going forward, the landscape is going to continually change. There are going to be new technologies, new applications, new combinations of current technologies, and you're going to have to adapt along with them. Wrong way. I'll get there. So just to give you some perspective, I entered graduate school in 1979. And since that time as a biochemist, here are some of the things that have been invented. And the fact that I can do science today means that if I had been frozen, right, my skill set, that was my skill set coming out of graduate school, I would be completely, utterly useless. Jake wouldn't even hire me as a technician, right? So part of this business is to be a lifelong learner. The profile of the biomedical research workforce has changed a lot as biochemistry and molecular biology and plant biotech and all these things have spread. They've moved out of the world of academics more and more into the commercial areas, right? Green energy, biofuels. People are now, engineering. We're going to make artificial bones and joints and stuff, all these things. And so, whereas typically the number one career option for someone getting a PhD in biochemistry or biology or something like that was to go and be a professor, nowadays more than half the PhD recipients are going into the private sector to work. Okay? And the other thing is that I know everything, we show you in the literature and stuff is, the person in the lab coat with the pipetter and the tubes and the spectrophotometer. Actually, there are more jobs away from the laboratory than there are in the laboratory. So those of you who go, I really like science and this is really cool, but I don't like wearing the lab coat and doing this every day, there are tons of career options for you. Okay? Who employs people trained in biology, plant biotech, molecular animal science, all these things? Well, you guys have heard the healthcare debate, right? We're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. And what's the statistic they keep saying? They're in an awful rush to do something that's going to affect how much of the economy? No MSNBC fans here, I take it. 1/6. Okay? So in terms of job opportunities, pharmaceuticals, we've heard about diagnosis, monitors, prosthetic devices, all sorts of things. Food is an incredibly biological process. It's who comes up with pH balanced shampoo and hypoallergenic makeup. Meat tenderizers or enzymes. You have enzyme enhanced detergents. The reason that your milk can have, dates like sell by September 10th. I got a carton yesterday. Well, when I was a kid, it'd be sell by September 1st. The ability to store food, keep it safe, protect it for long periods of time reflects a whole lot of science. Any microbiologists here? Right. Food microbiology is really important. Environmental analysis and bioremediation, there's a whole industry there. Chemical and energy industries nowadays. All the oil companies are investing in biofuels and stuff like that because they're not in the business of selling oil, they're in the business of making money. And they'll make money any way they can. World's largest employer, with the possible exception of the Chinese government, I'm not sure what their stats are, is our own federal government. We are doing biomedical research in the National Institutes of Health. We need people to oversee clinical trials and determine whether it's safe to market new drugs, Food and Drug Administration, USDA, National Science Foundation, EPA, or at least what's left of it right now, the Department of Defense, right? If you're, you can come in, you can sit down, there are chairs.
I gotta leave early.
Darn, you're missing the talk. But what's the military, has to deal with? Health crises in remote locations, right? Someone gets wounded, gets injured on a mountain in Afghanistan. They've got to come up with, they can't go, the 6-minute wait for the emergency room. No, they're, miles away from the emergency room. So all sorts of medical things, all sorts of biological things. CIA, how do you determine whether or not somebody is trying to grow anthrax or something as a biological weapon? It's not because they put up a sign saying anthrax here, it's because they start buying bacterial media and all sorts of things, and that's the clue that intelligence agencies use to figure out what's going on. Colleges and universities remain major employers. Teaching is important, research is important. You don't have to have a PhD. There's lots of technical support, taking care of the animals, taking care of the machines. Investment firms. How do you know which pharmaceutical company to buy stock in? Or which company, whether Nabisco or somebody has got a really great new organic food product coming out or something like that, or whether Monsanto, how things are going to go with them with the controversies over their herbicide and pesticide resistant crops. They need people with technical expertise. Publishing and journalism. You guys have all gone to college, right? How much money did you spend on textbooks? Too much, yes. That is a huge industry. Guess who writes, who edits, who illustrates those textbooks? Lots of people with scientific and technical training, people who cross over. Law, ethics, public policy. Who's heard of CRISPR-Cas9? Right, and what's the fear? Right, is we're going to start editing genes and, and suddenly we're going to just start playing God. It's like, so there's this outcry, there ought to be a law. We've got to figure out how we're going to handle this. Well, there've got to be people who know the science to be involved in that. Got to be people in the patent office that can read intelligently patent applications. So, there's the typical career areas: research and development, production, quality control, being clinical laboratory, health, safety. Nowadays, there's a whole in silico world. We are generating data faster than we can read it physically. So figuring out how to make that data retrievable, right? Who's gone on PubMed, right? You know, someone had to figure that out. You know, what you needed to be able to search by, like keywords in the article names or the authors or all these sorts of things. Well, picking out the right article from the millions that are out there is child's play compared to searching the mosquito genomes that, you know, Jake Tu and his collaborators are getting sequences of and finding interesting sequences and interesting genes. There are chairs up here. Go ahead. Okay. There's intellectual property, there's regulatory affairs, there's export control. Oh, marketing and sales, let's say education, genetic counseling is a career out there. Nowadays, we have 23andMe, right? So now you can sit there and go with your spouse and go, gee, you know, if we have a kid, the risk of X, forensics, all sorts of things. So the take-home message is there are tons of career options for you. They are very broad. Many of those career options will draw upon talents beyond just being good at plant science or animal science or biology or biochemistry. You know, you have an artistic bent, you're a good people person, you are someone who's really good with the cyber world, something like that. There's all sorts of things out there. This is a room full of individuals, and the spectrum of opportunities and jobs in there is really wide. So part of your challenge is going to be figuring out where you as an individual fit in that spectrum. What are employers looking for? Yes, they want to know that you're bright and talented, but they also want to know what skills and experience do you bring. I have to show you how to do everything. That really doesn't save me anything. Why should I hire you? I see people are into the pizza. Are people hungry? 5-minute break. Go grab some pizza. Let's do this more in a way.